Hey everybody, it's Minion Soldier, it's ship updates, it's Invictus. Let's get started. There's a lot to talk about here, so if you haven't already, get in there, you run on down to Tressler over, I was actually going to call it by a different name, Microtech, and you get to a sweet tour of the interior of the Javelin. We'll get to that in a minute. If you've ever been curious about the cafeteria or the sleeping accommodations for general crew members on the Javelin, it's a hell of a tour. Yeah, but we'll get there. There's a lot of interesting stuff that happens in the Invictus sale. One of the coolest things that I saw that, from what I can see on the sale page, it seems to be intentional, is that something like the Polaris, which in the past has at times gone in limited quantities, seems to be going in unlimited quantities right now. Just if you've got it, you can get it. It's that simple. Whereas, of course, things like the Idris, things like the Javelin are, they're the usual. They're selling it at the usual sale times. But if you're after that ship, you're dead after that ship. You don't need me to tell you that. You're probably already tracked down when and where the sales are happening. If that's your thing, I don't recommend it. I've had the option open to me once to purchase a Javelin. I know I've told this story before, but for those of you who haven't heard it, during the initial sale of the Javelin, they were just like gone. And then someone came and told me they knew somebody through the a different market for Star Citizen ships, and they said, listen, so and so knows you, likes your videos, there is going to be a Javelin that is going to go up for sale, and if you speak to this person, they can make sure that it goes back up on the market at a very specific time when probably no one else is looking, and you can snap it up. And it was within reach for me, I have to be honest, but I just said no. That's too much heat for this dirty little pirate. So, no, I have been tempted, and I have turned that temptation away. But if that's your thing, good luck to you. Fingers crossed. But I honestly don't recommend it unless you're very specifically heading for very specific types of missions and duties within Star Citizen. It's not my cup of tea, but maybe it's yours. Who am I to judge? But something like the Polaris maybe is within reach or within reason for a lot more players out there. Unlimited quantities. That's very interesting. But I think you guys all know the ship that we want to talk about. The ship that just about everybody has been talking about since its release, the new heavy fighter, the Scorpius. So I kind of went through the Q&A. I'd seen the price, and I went the price and the ship didn't match up in my mind. It was cheaper than I thought it was going to be, and it took a little reading of the fine print, and I was like, oh, there, I see it. That's where I see it. So in general, when looking at the Q&A, I kind of realized that the questions were they were meme questions. They weren't really, they didn't pick the best questions. So when I would normally look at the Q&A, I really just kind of looked at this ship itself. All right. The Q&A and discussion around the Scorpius, we're going to be kind of blending these two because when I was reading through this Q&A, it's obvious that this was kind of like a rush job. I mean, question 1, can the turret be controlled by the pilot? Da-da-da-da-da. Yes, it can with slave by a computer blade. Question 4, can I operate the remote turret with an AI blade? Right? And so it's just, can I fire the guns, I guess, into the wings while I'm landed? Like, this is all memes. These are all meme questions. So, I mean, normally we go through a Q&A. We do a little bit of a react when we're kind of going through this. I record it live as I'm reading it. And when I was reading this, like, my initial reaction is like, this is 100% memes. Like, like the graphics on the side here, this shouldn't be like a glaive and like what's this over here, Xi'an Scout. This should be like Yao Ming and like cross-eyed Pepe or J. Jonah Jameson laughing. You know, like this is ridiculous. Like these questions are just, you know, a joke. And where was it? Yeah, there was. You know, I almost wanted to say, like, when I was recording this, where is it? Oh, yeah. Are the turret guns bespoke? I was like, man, Disco Lando wrote this. You know it right then and there. Because, you know, somewhere on his body, he's got the word bespoke tattooed on him somewhere. 100% guaranteed. So what are we going to talk about is the Scorpius. Because, you know, if you saw me earlier in the week on the Info Runners talking about this ship, I had some very positive things to say about this. There's some other stuff that I do want to talk about with this ship, and I do feel that CIG is kind of playing a weird game with this ship. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you look at this, right? And you say, oh, yeah, you know what? So I get a buddy in the seat, or I get an AI blade. Bang, I've got up to 8 size 3 guns. And yeah, these are fixed, but they do converge. Convergence is something that we have added to the game with fixed guns. You know, made a few videos about that years ago, and I guess other players were complaining, and CIG finally went like, oh yeah, that is kind of dumb. And so that has supposedly, to a certain degree, been fixed. But one of the biggest things I have with this is, like, you look at this and you look at what you would think its normal competitor would be, something like the F8 Lightning. Well, not exactly, right? The stats that we kind of have on the F8 Lightning, which are, of course, up in the air, you put its speed at about 796, I think it is, meters a second, which, you know, seems a little bit odd when a Drake Cutlass Black can do over 1,000. Weird. And so that's kind of where I think that these ships have kind of fallen into a bizarre kind of trough in CIG's thinking, where they're not exactly sure what these are going to be, because at face value, you look at these, you think about the realities of 6 Degrees of Freedom, and you just say, oh, the F8 Lightning, this, something like the Ion, these could just be like absolute, you know, just barnstormers. I mean, certainly with the Ion and the Inferno, with the equipment that they have, it almost seems like they were designed in a completely different bubble compared to these, because with this, you have 2 small shield modules, a small quantum drive, small cooler, small power core, right? So, yeah, this is a lot of firepower, but do you have the heat management and the power capacity to really drive this firepower and sustain it? Maybe, maybe not. So this might end up being something of like a heavy-duty alpha ship, where you come in and you just get in 3 or 4 really big hits, and then you got to wait and let that capacitor charge back up, let that power core kind of recover, let that heat die down. That, in a weird way, I would think that would make the gameplay with this ship very interesting. You know, very interesting indeed. Very skill-based, very much for the attentive pilot and co-pilot, you know, which, you know, obviously is something we would like to see in the game. Most of us, I think. But I feel that when you look at this in comparison to some of the bigger things that are out there, and I'm talking, of course, about things like, I mean, I can't even believe I'm going to say this, the Constellation, things like the Corsair, things like the Inferno, things like the Ion. I mean, remember, this thing comes with small shields, only 2 of them. So that's less shielding than a Drake Cutlass has. And it's still a fairly sizable ship. And it's not big, but it's still fairly sizable. You know, I think that, I mean, to be reasonable, I mean, compared to the F8 Lightning, and I mean, the F8 Lightning, of course, the stats are once again up in the air. But I think the last stats that we had on the F8 Lightning was 4 small shield generators. So that kind of put it up into a bit of a reasonable range. But at the same time, a fair argument could be made. So why don't you just do 2 mediums? You know? Well, maybe, yeah, take the hit points down a little bit. Or maybe 2 smalls and a medium or something like that. I mean, it seems like 4 shield generators? Okay. You know, mix and match, different recharges, things like that, of course. But It was a weird choice, but the fact that this only has 2 seems a little heavy-handed. The power cores also are a bit of a mystery because, once again, you step up to the F8 Lightning and you get a medium power core, if I remember correctly, whereas this is 2 smalls. So that's where you kind of get into this point where, all this firepower, which initially looks really good, could... you're probably not going to be using, these Gatling lasers or these repeaters. You're not going to be using certainly Gatling guns because apparently Gatling guns use more energy than energy weapons. I know, right? Weird, but okay. So you may be in a position where firing all 8 of these guns at once could be, to use a good word that gets a lot of usage these days, problematic. Poor Elon Musk. But yeah, it's a weird combination. I almost feel like this is like the chance to kind of step into those bigger things. And initially when I looked at this and when I saw this and I was looking at this and I was thinking, looking at something like this, looking at the F8 Lightning and thinking about flying something like the Corsair, I was like, ooh, that could be dangerous. That could be really, really dangerous. I got to watch out, I got to see how popular these ships are. Cause that's definitely going to be something to look out for. But when I look at the realities of being in a sustained fight and just that differential in firepower and certainly the differential in terms of shield resistances, and this is still going to be like, if you've ever flown the Xi'an Scout and you know what these spread out wings are like in terms of giving surface area to shoot at, and it's only got 2 shields and they're smalls, I'm not that worried anymore. I'm not. For smaller ships, I'd be a little bit concerned. I mean, if you were to take this thing down to size 2s, and even take these guns down to size 2s, that's still 8 size 2 guns. Like the smaller ships, if you wanted to go out there and just rip up the smaller ships, this thing would be, kind of a dream. You get a really hyper efficient quantum drive, maybe squeeze. I mean, with the weight of it, maybe you can squeeze 100 million kilometers out of the quantum drive before you need to refuel. Once again, it depends on your fuel tanks and all that, which are smalls as well, by the way. Maybe. But yeah, it seems like this is kind of set up to be a bit of a burst attacker. Get in, get some really big hits in with all of the guns, because I don't know. It just doesn't really seem like a ship that'll sustain in a dogfight. When I was originally looking at it, I thought, oh man, what would be the ultimate pimp move? Take this thing and you see how he's kind of looking like he's about to shoot at this fighter over here, like he's about to turn and chase him. You think about this in the rear turret, you got 2 people working together as a team. Potentially you could be engaging 2 targets at the same time, and that would be kind of like a dope dogfight. That would be pretty sick. Let's say you're being chased through space, and you turn your ship, you decouple, you're firing at, let's say, one Gladius or Buccaneer or whatever, and then your rear turret is firing at the other one, so you're actually taking on 2 people at once. That would be some pretty dope dogfighting. But would you have the power to sustain that dogfight before it's like, weapons overheating, power core training, capacitor empty, shutting down, boop boop boop. I don't know. And the coolers too. 8 size 3 guns on small coolers. Yikes. Seems a little heavy-handed. I would probably gone with a medium power core and 2 medium coolers on this. Or maybe like 4 coolers. Just say you place them out here in the wings just next to the engines. Maybe. Because yeah, that would be my biggest concerns with this ship, is the potential overheats and the power core drain. The shielding, I mean, I could see an argument because of all this firepower. You'd be coming in pretty hard, and the alpha strike on this, if you pick the right weapons, could be just crushing, absolutely crushing. But yeah, to me, it feels like a bit of an undershot. Like I was saying before, you know, when I think of it from the point of view of flying something like a Corsair, and something like this comes after me in space. I'm not that concerned about it. I'm really not. If it was an F8 Lightning, more so. If it was an Ion or an Inferno, very much so. This, no. I think, you know, this could have been that moment where we kind of crossed that river and we're like, now we're into the big shit. Now it's no more of the little ships. We're talking the big ships. Well, we're not there yet. I don't think so. I don't think we're at this moment anymore, because when I saw those internals, I went like, yikes. Sorry, I had to take a drink there. But yeah, it feels like they kind of started it off from a bit of a gimped place. I would like to see, you know, like a medium power core and medium coolers in this thing at the very least, just to be able to sustain that weaponry. I can deal with the range, I can deal with all those other things, but I totally understand the price of this now. Because when I first saw that price, I was like, oh my god, are they serious? And that's when I went and I was like, no, there's got to be something else going on here. And that's when I looked at the internals and went, ooh, yikes. Maybe not. So something to keep in mind, especially if you just kind of did like the old snap by, or if you're thinking about it, something to think about, something additional to think about, because a lot of these systems, we really don't know how, and like even CIG doesn't know how these are all going to work out in the end. I feel like in so many ways this ship delivers exactly what Star Citizen needs, but in that small print, there's some issues here, I think, that need to be looked at and discussed and debated for a while, because I can see it from the F8 Lightning point of view, but at the same time, yeah, it feels a little under delivered. It's somewhere in those modules, in those small modules, something needs to change, because given the choice between this and earning an F8 Lightning and playing Squadron 42 to get to that point, I would probably go for the F8 Lightning, or I would just skip it and say, you know what, I got NPCs, bang, get in the old Corsair, no worries. Anyways, yeah, so those are my thoughts on the Scorpius. There's a lot of good stuff happening here. And I think if you build this ship around the idea of, like coming in hot with a heavy alpha strike and just dealing devastating damage, and you're willing to deal with that limited range and, of course, no interior and all those inconveniences, I think it'll be pretty decent. I think it'll be a pretty decent ship in that way. But in terms of like range and reach and something like that, I think you have to set your sights in the sail just a little bit higher. Like, you know what I mean? Anyways, yeah, so RSI Scorpius. Interesting. So in general, that's what I thought of the Scorpius. Some good things, some bad things. Initially I kind of expected it to be more around the medium modules. I have to admit, I kind of figured it was going to fit in more in that space because, once again, we'd gotten this lore hit that it was, when we were talking on the Info Runners, we were talking about this thing being too expensive, and that's why in the lore why the UEE didn't take it. And so I felt that, you know, its equipment was just a little lacking, a little weird. But then, you know, when I saw the price, I just went, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. I get what they're trying to do here. I'd be very interested to see the other companies that bid on that contract, and I'm very sure that we are going to see those over time. I would love to know what Drake showed up at that competition with. I'm sure it would be very interesting, of course. Here's a weird moment when I was out to go and look at the sale. I have to include this in the video because it was so funny, but this NPC spawned in space, so he's just out there floating outside of the station. And I was just like, that. It's funny, but kind of grim at the same time. It's just like he's just kind of floating out there and twitching. It's a little bit disturbing, but at the same time, I couldn't help but watch. Interesting things happening at the Invictus sale this year. Definitely. But in general, I feel that, you know, you can sit here and you can talk about every ship individually, but a lot of my feelings are known on a lot of these things, obviously, if you're watching this channel. I would say, like, this is generally like a good opportunity to kind of go and say, hey, you know, I've picked up a couple of things over the year, and maybe this isn't really working out all that well. Maybe that Rock DS wasn't such a great idea after all. This is a good time to consolidate into much more stable platforms, you know, to build up your future in Star Citizen. That's generally how I view these anniversary sales. It's a good time to kind of look at what you have in your hangar and really kind of think about what really needs to be there and what was maybe a little bit of wishful thinking, or, you know, just something that might have not been all that realistic. You know, this is the best time to kind of go, you know, when you're talking about CCUs, certainly it's the best time to kind of go and shift things around. And maybe you've seen something over the last year and you've been like, man, that ship's really hard to get, but it looks really fun, or it looks really interesting. You know, this is when things like the Caterpillar and stuff like that show up, and you can kind of go, hey, now here's my chance. There's going to be a lot of things coming up over the week that, you know, maybe you have seen and you just feel like, yeah, maybe I want to give that a spin for 6 months, you know? And that's kind of where, you know, things for me like the Retaliator come in and stuff like that. And I go, like, yeah, you know what? I've never really given that a try. And that's where these things kind of come in. And the good thing is that with 2 anniversary sales, I mean, because it more or less is an anniversary sale, when everything is up for grabs, you can kind of make these semi-long-term commitments to a ship that, you know, you want to really try out. You really want to check it out and see what it's capable of doing. And this kind of opens the door for that. So this is, you know, for me, this is really a great time to kind of, you know, take some time to really take a hard look at my hangar and say what really needs to be here and what is kind of, you know, superfluous. And so that was a pretty cool thing. It's a pretty cool thing to have access to. And I'm not altogether opposed to, you know, certain limited things coming back, except when you sell them as, you know, this is one time only. And then it's just like, but for the 4th time, you know, the Dragonfly Yellow Jacket is, you know, it's the classic example I'd love to use. But yeah, get out there, check things out, and see what's what. Now, just keep in mind any unique clothing items that you buy for the Invictus sale are have yet to become permanent for me. I bought things at the last Invictus sale, you know, and I remember I was talking about it in one video. I bought a whole bunch of wardrobe for my alt, and then it all disappeared in the next patch. So sad face, but here we are in one of the turrets on the Javelin, you know, something that I never thought would be footage that I would be putting up on this channel, but here we are. Now, unfortunately, the guns are not working, though I was hearing guns working while I was touring the ship, so I can assume that somebody's got it going, or maybe someone was just outside of the Javelin creating havoc. That's a possibility as well. But I mean, it was cool to see the interior of the Javelin, to explore it, to not know where everything is. It's kind of cool to kind of see that. And at the same time, you can see how it is, organized, how it does kind of play with the features that you'd get in the Hammerhead. It's like, no, you cannot go in here. Go the other way. And that's the part of it that heavily disappointed me, is that there was so little to see in the Javelin. I have to admit it. I was so super disappointed. It's like the bunk room and the cafeteria and a few turrets. It was, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll have to probably go back and dig around and see. But I was just sitting here going like, can I not get up to the bridge? That was, I just kept trying to wander around and find some way up to, the command deck or something like that. Oh yeah, the briefing room. We got to see the briefing room as well. But yeah, that was honestly kind of a disappointment that we couldn't get up to the bridge of this thing. I was kind of hoping to see more. But I mean, it does look cool. I mean, it very much does look cool, and you can see the care and attention put into like the artistic details of the ship. But I hoped for more access to the ship, I don't know. Maybe there's a video out there that I haven't seen. Somebody glitched their way through and they got into the, the you cannot be here civilian areas of the ship. But, I was kind of hoping for more. It's, yeah. Whoa, careful now. Yeah, this was kind of like, why did you bother? Because it's so little of the ship, and really it's just you're showing off the lamest parts of the ship, man. Like, where's the torpedo room? Where's the engine room? Where's the bridge? Like, oh no, they saw the bridge. Now they know what the plot of Squadron 42 is. The wow factor is gone. I will not compromise. I will not, show it before it's ready. It's like, yeah, well, great. So that was kind of a disappointment. I mean, it's an interesting cafeteria, and apparently the XO has the high score on, whatever game, Vanguard Defender or whatever. I don't know. I'll have to go back and check and see if anybody else has like found a way to kind of sneak around in the ship, because I would like to get that footage, but I don't know. From what little we've seen, I mean, obviously they did a pretty good job, but I was kind of hoping to see more. Yeah, sad face. In general, I think you guys know what my likes and dislikes in Star Citizen are. I think that, going forward, the Drake Caterpillar, even with the Hercules turning up, is still going to be a solid cargo running ship. Can it transport heavy vehicles? No. If that's an option that you're looking for, Hercules might be more your speed. But, things like the Corsair, Mercury Star Runner, Constellation, maybe. Dude, I'm trying. I really am, but dude, But those are decent ships great ships to decent ships. The Polaris still feels strong to me. I still feel like the Polaris is going to be a strong ship whenever that is going to be a ship. I do still like the Nautilus. Enough to own it? I guess we're going to find out in the near future. But I do still like it. I do still like that ship. You guys know how I feel about the Idris and the Javelin. But yeah, those are the ones that really stand out to me. I think that something like the Vulture, I think that's going to be one of the next big gold rushes in Star Citizen. But is that going to happen, before a big cash reset? More than likely. So, that's something to keep in mind if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to get rich on that Vulture. I'm going to get rich on that Reclaimer. There's probably going to be some adjustments up and down with salvaging. So, the Reclaimer's still a pretty solid ship. I think mining ships, if you're going to go multi-crew and you're going to kind of go all out, I think that the Mole is kind of a waste of time. I think, go big or go home, get the Orion. But, of course, the Orion isn't available yet. But I believe the Mole is still a loaner for the Orion. Double check me on that, please, in the comments below. But if you're just solo, man, I would assume that the Prospector is still fairly decent for that. Cargo ships, yeah, I'm still partial because I'm not thinking about driving a tank. This guy apparently is having some kind of a neurological issue, but unless you need to transport a tank, I do like the Caterpillar, and I do like the Caterpillar speed, especially for avoiding unwanted contacts. Though that ability to carry multiple heavy vehicles might be more something that you're interested in which case the Hercules, obviously. I think later in the year, with the arrival of the A2 Hercules, I believe it is, the attack version, that is potentially going to be a bit of a game changer when ground installations come into the game a little bit more heavily. So something definitely to watch out for there. Medium fighters, small fighters, you guys know how I feel about that. Kind of a waste of time. Better to buy something that's going to earn a lot of money and then just buy those things backwards. Don't spend money on them up front. And, if you're just starting out in the game and you're looking for a good starter ship, a reasonable starter ship, Drake Cutlass Black, always a fantastic buy, but it's always available, so you don't really have to worry about it in this sale. But yeah, those are my thoughts and feelings on a lot of ships. Scorpius, I like it, but do I like it enough? I'm still on the fence, dude. I'm still on the fence. Those small modules got me kind of worried. And the bigger ship seems a little bit more my speed. Anyways, yeah, so that's it. That's the video for today. It's probably going to be a pretty long one. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.